When you combine the dream come true of being a dad with the dream to be of entrepreneurship, you're presented with a world of possibilities along with a world of challenges. Join Joel Lewis as he interviews successful entrepreneur dads sharing how they made it work from the start. This is Startup Dad HQ.
Hey, welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters, where we're exploring the intersection between fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and life. And today's Startup Dads backstage, I'm really excited to have onto the show Justin Ricklefs. Justin is a sales guy at heart who loves the art of putting good deals together. He has worked in college athletics, the front office of the NFL teams, and enterprise technology companies. He and his wife Brooke have 5 young children and are often asked in public, are all of those yours? They called Kansas City, Missouri home. Justin writes about how professionals can reclaim what matters most in business, wellness, and at home. You could connect with him on his website, Justin Ricklefs.com, and follow him on Twitter with the same spelling. So Justin, I'm really excited to get into this conversation. Welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters.
Thanks, Joel. I really appreciate your time here and your invitation to be on the show and to share with your listeners here a bit. So I'm really grateful to be on the show.
Yeah, man, it's awesome the way we connected as well through Twitter, which to be quite honest with you, this was the first time I actually connected with the dad over Twitter. I'm still learning. I'm actually still learning Twitter. I don't know if you've mastered it yet, but I'm still learning my way around it. And when we connected with each other, I was like, oh man, I got to get Justin onto the show. So I'm really excited to have you on.
Hey, and yeah, I'm definitely not a master of Twitter, but I do love it. I love the conversation that's happening there, and it is a very engaging community, and I love just the different conversations and the ways to get connected to awesome guys like you on Twitter. So that I appreciate the connection.
Yeah, awesome. So Justin, tell us a little bit more about you. Tell us what you got going on with your business right now that's really getting you excited.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned in the open there, my wife of almost now 12 years it will be 12 years on in January here in 2015. So my wife of 12 years, her name is Brooke, and I like to call her the CEO of our home. She definitely keeps me in line and keeps us trucking with 5 kids, as you can imagine. So at one point we had 5 children under the age of 8 in our home. So when our youngest was born, this is a couple years back, but when our youngest was born, our oldest at the time was about to turn 8. So we have definitely kind of been in the hand-to-hand combat mode of raising these little ones. So, and 4 of them are girls. So the first, second, third are daughters. The 4th is the Lone Ranger, as we call him, and we can talk more about that here in a bit, but that poor kid has no chance. He's the only boy in the family. And then the baby, who's not a baby any longer, is another girl, and she is about 3.5. So in terms of what I'm working on, and I think some of your listeners can probably resonate with this, I'm very much in the side hustle, getting up early, staying up late. For me, where my business has started to resonate a bit has been in the writing community. So we'll talk about the specifics here in a bit, but I'll have my first book, which is exciting to announce that I'll be launching my first book on Amazon here in mid to late January. And it's specifically about parenting daughters from a dad's perspective. And not by any stretch of the imagination do I have all the secrets figured out. We're very much stumbling our way through it, like we all are, trying to figure it out. But in with the complexities of our home life, I've figured out some things that have resonated well there. And then kind of more broad, I'd say we are having a really neat conversation on my blog, JustinRicklefs.com, um, with men primarily, some women too for sure, but men primarily that are driven, ambitious, motivated guys who, candidly, they want to kick butt at work, have an awesome career, make
Right.
good money, do cool stuff, have influential roles, all that. And it's not separate, it's an and. They also want to kick butt at home, and they want to be engaged, and they want to love their wives well, or they want to love their stepdaughters well, or their kids well, or whatever the individual roles are that they play at home. They want to do both of those things well. So again, not that I have all the answers, but we're having a cool conversation about how to go do that, and how to not look back in 20 years and say, oh man, like I either totally neglected my career and we have nothing to show for it financially, or I totally sacrificed time with my family to go chase this big corporate ladder and found out it wasn't satisfying, right? So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of the stuff I get fired up about.
Yeah, yeah, that is so much going to resonate with the Startup Dad community. And one of my goals and my tagline, if you will, is to inspire one small business launch every single day by dads everywhere. And I think with individuals like you and the things that you're working on in the book that you're about to release, I think that's going to inspire a lot of that. I mean, if you with 4 girls and a son, 5 children total can do it, dads out there have no excuse. So I really love what you're working on. I also interviewed recently Eugene Jordan, who he lives in Canada, and he has his website is called Men and Marriage, and I think it resonates as well with
That's
or
awesome.
parallels with what you're working on as well. And with 4 girls, man, you definitely will be considered an expert in the subject. So,
Yeah, like I said, if expert maybe in the sense of, hey fellas, here's all the stuff you shouldn't do that I did and screwed up along the way. But yeah, you're exactly right. And there's guys like Eugene, there's guys like Jackie Bledsoe, there's guys like Mark Merrill. I mean, there's a bunch of guys out there that are airing this, conversation of, hey, how do we go be men that are fully engaged in kind of all aspects of our lives, and live really well and be adventurous and all that stuff. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. So, Justin, before we dive deep into the early stages of your startup dad journey, we have to take care of some important business. And I like to kick this segment off with this quote: "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." And I think that will obviously resonate with you deeply. Would you agree?
100%, my friend, 100%.
Now, I asked my guests to submit a family fun photo so that we could talk about it for multiple reasons. One, so we could get a little bit to know a little bit more about you, but also to make that connection between you and the startup dads out there. So you submitted a wonderful picture of your family. Let's take a look at that right now. And then you gave us a little breakdown of each one. But tell us what's going on in this picture, and share who's in this photo.
Yeah, sure. So this is actually was our Christmas card from this year, and the brick wall behind us is our new old home, as we refer to it. So we'll get into my journey here in a bit, but we just recently moved back to Kansas City, and the home we bought is 146 years old, and it went through a complete renovation. Thankfully, not by me, because it would have fallen apart. But the company we bought it from, literally, bought it. The thing sat vacant for 10 years. It was an eyesore to the community, and a real just train wreck, to be quite honest, of a home. And he did a 10-month renovation project, and we bought it, and so that's the brick wall that we're standing in front of. And the house itself reminded me through these last several months about reclaiming meaning in the things that matter most. So this home used to be this beautiful, grand, glorious estate type home here in Missouri, and over the years it got converted to apartments, and then there was a fire and it didn't get repaired, and all these other terrible things happened. But when you start to strip away the layers, and we saw, man, this thing, we not we as in Brooke and I, but this company brought this home back to life, and they reclaimed its original intent, right?
Mm.
So anyhow, that's the background. My wife there is Brooke, and again, we've been married almost 12 years now, and we actually were high school sweethearts for a bit. We had a very, very typical high school type relationship where it was a little bit on again, off again type of a deal. But we both went to the University of Missouri, so proud SEC school, playing in a bowl game here in a bit. And we had our first daughter, who's on the screen here, the far left in the white. Her name is Camden, and she turns 11 in January. So we had her, Brooke had her, more specifically, 4 days after our 1-year anniversary. So it was all the hopes and plans of, hey, we're going to travel and we're both going to work and save a ton of money and all this other stuff totally went out the window when we had number one. And from that point on, we said, I've written about this a little bit on my blog, but we said, man, look, like, we're going to be okay. We're going to figure it out, and we'll make it work. And we didn't want to put a huge gap. Obviously, all Lord willing, that we're blessed to be able to have children pretty rapidly, as you can see in that picture. But our second daughter, her name is Adelie, Adalee, and she goes by Addie, and she's the one right to my immediate right in the photo. And then Rowan is number 3, and she's on Brooke's left side, and Brooke's left there in the white. Mm-hmm. And then the Lone Ranger boy is kind of down there on the F in our last name.
Sorry.
No worries. Hey, there's so many of them, man. They get hidden all over the place. It's all good. So his name is Silas, Silas, and he's 4.5. And then Henley is the baby, the not so baby, but we treat her like a baby still. And her name is spelled Henley. So yeah, that's our rowdy, chaotic crew right there.
Nice. I have to fix this. I am so sorry. I didn't even notice that when I was making that adjustment. I can't cut these guys out.
Hey, it's all good. I didn't notice it either till we started getting to them, so no sweat.
There they are. Look at those cuties. All right, let's fix that. And that should... There they are.
There they are. Love it.
Nice. Now you said Henley, and what's your son's name?
His name is Silas. Silas.
Wow, these are awesome names, man. You guys, you came up with them, or your wife or Brooke came up with them?
Yeah, I'd love to take the credit for most of those, but no, Brooke is the creative one in the family, and she would, we obviously agreed on them, but she had seen these in random places or read about them in a book or whatever, and so yeah, she initiated most of the names, and I was like, heck yeah, I love it, let's do it.
Yeah. So Justin, tell me, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Oh gosh, that's a weighty question, right? I think the role as a dad is the most precious, quote unquote, job that I'll ever have. To be honest, the responsibility, it's not obviously all up to me, but if you look systemically, I should say, across the world, really, when you see a lack of fatherhood, typically you also see really destructive things happening. Whether it's and there's folks far smarter than me, the Mentoring Project and all these other organizations that are acknowledging that the lack of a father in a home is a really destructive thing. And so it's a role that, man, I'm humbled to perform, right? But also excited and joyful to say, man, this is an unbelievable, weighty responsibility. Yeah, it's marked with a ton of love, a ton of joy, a ton of engagement, all those other things. And yeah, does that help answer the question? I mean, it's an unbelievable role, and it's the most important one I'll ever have. Now, I say that in light of wanting a very healthy, strong marriage. I think that's all part of that dynamic, but in the sense of a father's impact on a child, specifically on a female child, on a daughter, I think is paramount. I mean, Dr. Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. I'm not sure if you've read that book. I'm blanking on her name at the moment here. But there's literature all over the place that talks about the importance of a dad being engaged in his children's lives. And of course, I fail every day, and I stumble, and I screw up, and I've got to ask them to forgive me and tell them I'm sorry. But yeah, that's my long-winded answer to tell you that it's an incredibly vital role.
Yeah, no, and I think I think you touched on some really good points there. And I have heard of Strong Daughters. Actually, one of my past guests, Sean Leslie, mentioned it, and it's on my list of books to read. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but with 3 girls, it's probably one of the ones I need to get on the top of the list right away. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you'll blow through it. You'll crack it open, and you'll stay up all night reading it, because it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, Justin, how are you balancing family and business?
It's a great question, Joel. So, to sidetrack a bit, I struggle with the word balance. I really do. I think that balance sets us up for expectations that aren't going to be met from something. Whether it's, hey, does balance always mean you leave the office right at 5 o'clock, or you always spend the exact amount of time with each of your kids, or you always do X, Y, and Z in some kind of formulaic approach? But I think, to answer you directly, when the lights come on in the room of your mind or in your heart, really, to say, these are the things I'm passionate about, these are the things I care about, these are the things that are meaningful, whether it's, in my world, it's kind of work, wellness, and home. Like when those 3 things, when I know and can see with clarity the vision of what I want to go do, and the things that I know aren't just about me, but that make me come alive, then I think you find the energy, right? Like, you find the time, you find the resources, you make stuff happen when you care about it. And it could be, hey, I love watching 4 hours of TV a day, and so I'm going to sit on my butt and watch TV. Like that, you made time for that. You made a choice to make that happen. And for me, I've been bitten with this urgent desire to go tell the world through my blog, and it's not the world yet, it's not even close, but in my mind, it's the world, to say, hey, fellas, dads, don't miss this window. It's a short window, and we all know the stories of our dads or our uncles or our pastors at church or our neighbors or whatever, these older men in our lives that continually tell us, hey, don't miss that, guys. Like, don't it flies by, it's too short, it's all these other things. And so I'm saying, hey, while we're in it, while we are tired and stressed out and worried about making the mortgage payment and worrying about finding the time to go on a date with my wife, like, figure it out and lean into it. Even if it's messy, let's lean into it. So I think to come back to your question in the sense of how do you find the balance, or how do you find the time to make work stuff happen and home stuff happen, if you care about it, you're going to do it. And again, there's guys much smarter than me, Seth Godin and all these other really smart marketing guys, that talk about, if you care, if you're intentional, if you're deliberate with your desires, you're going to find the time to make it a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what you decide to prioritize, right? So yeah, I love that. Love that answer. And you also talked about when the light turns on inside your heart, and then you mentioned work, wellness, and home, right? So basically, the things that you're passionate about. If you're truly passionate about those things, you're going to make the time to work on those things. And you shared a lot of great stuff, like finding time to go on a date with your wife, right? I mean, that's because we do want to talk about fatherhood, but like you mentioned, like, it's very important that you find the time to spend with your spouse, because eventually the kids will be gone.
That's
and
right.
you don't want to turn around and look and be like, who is this person I'm with, right? Because you've basically spent your entire time all your energy focusing on the children, you kind of let your marriage slip by. So
Yeah, that's right. There's a story that happened in our world. There's a my wife Brooke, one of her best friends in college. Her dad raised three daughters, like you're doing, and so it was her wedding day, and she was getting married, and we sat. Thankfully, Brooke was in the wedding, and so we sat kind of close to all the action. And I asked her dad. I said, "Hey, like, what's the secret, man? Like, what?" And this is, I mean, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I said, what's the secret to raising daughters like your three? Like, this just isn't an accident that these three grown women now are strong, beautiful, confident women. Well, what's the secret? And he said, I'll tell you one thing. And he goes, and don't ever forget it. I was like, yes, sir. And he says, he goes, make sure that they see you love your wife. Man. So to your point exactly, that it is awesome to talk about fatherhood and its importance, all that it for sure is. But if I'm doing that at the expense of my marriage and my time with Brooke, then it erodes everything that I'm trying to teach them, right?
yeah.
So you're right on, man. You're 100% right.
Awesome, powerful. So so Justin, let's get down to besides throwing out the trash, what's one chore you're responsible for at home that is not typically a man, traditional man chore?
That's great. So to air my dirty laundry. So I'm the opposite of handy, and in fact, Brooke is a pretty handy companion. So she's the one that will swing a hammer and fix stuff at the house. And so my chores that don't fit in the manly bucket, I guess, is, man, I'm a ninja at folding laundry. I'll do it all day long. I'll pull that stuff out of the dryer. I'll sit on the couch and watch a football game or whatever, and I'll fold it. I absolutely hate the socks, and I hate putting it away. but that helps Brooke. I mean, she is grateful for the time that I'll spend folding the laundry. Right. But I'm not a huge fan of putting it away. And also, man, I'll do my more than fair share of dishes as well. So she's a great cook, and she carries that load primarily. But then I'll help clean up and throw dishes away and put them away and all that fun stuff. So.
Yeah, folding laundry is definitely not fun, but yeah, it's definitely a huge help. The thing that I learned how to do, I don't know if you figured it out, is how to fold the fitted sheet.
Oh, you need to teach me that.
All right, cool. I found a YouTube video that showed me how to do it, and it was like, man, this is amazing.
That's awesome. Put that link in the show notes, man.
So Justin, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's one of my favorite quotes. And you talked about having your blog, and basically you want to speak to the world, but you haven't gotten to the world yet, right? I'm sure you've gotten to a couple of hundred or a couple of thousands of dads. Share with us, this is where we go into your early stages of your Startup Dad journey. Share with us the early stages of your entrepreneur journey.
Sure. So yeah, definitely not. I have not reached the world yet with my message, but we'll get there. So the early stages honestly trace back a long time. So in college, I as a side hustle business in college and the initial months right out of school, I was buying and selling concert and event tickets online. So from Ticketmaster.com, so think StubHub today. I was doing that when eBay was kind of first coming onto the scene, and there were ways for a college kid to make a couple $100 on a weekend or whatever. So the roots started there, and I come from a fairly scrappy, middle class but entrepreneurial family. So my brother owns his own business, my mom owns her own business, my dad owns his own business. Again, nothing that is lighting the world on fire in Silicon Valley. They're not multimillionaires or anything like that, but they've believed in this philosophy of owning something. So in any event, the seed started way back 12 years ago or so, at Mizzou when I was buying and selling concert event tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And we made some good money, and it was fun, but it was very, very volatile. And man, candidly, I got my butt kicked a couple times towards the end where I got greedy and I overextended and thought I was too big for what I was doing, and it burned me. And we ended up, honestly, within the first 1 year of our marriage, we had nearly $30,000 of concert tickets that we had to eat because I overextended ourselves. So you're talking about, hey, go scramble to go get a real job, which I was fortunate to find one pretty quickly. But we've got a brand new baby, and the stress that comes with all that stuff. So the seed started way back there, and then my career up until 2013 was all in the sports sponsorship space. So if you see the Peyton Manning nationwide commercials on Super Bowl or whatever, on a local level, I was working at the University of Missouri, and then the University of Memphis, and then ultimately at the Kansas City Chiefs doing sponsorship sales. So I was aligning basically a corporate partner with the team and selling those assets that would obviously benefit the team financially and benefit the company with marketing, right?
Right.
So it was a great, awesome, fun, energetic, really neat career, and I loved it. And I still have some great friendships that I'll have till the day I die from that industry. But it's also an industry where you work and you're spread thin, and you're at the stadium at 6 o'clock on a game day, and you're there till 9 o'clock at night, and then you're back in the office for an 8 o'clock sales meeting the next morning. And with the trajectory of our family, with 5 young kids, it was one of those decisions where I knew, man, as much as I love this, I don't know if I can be the fully engaged guy that I want to be. So that was in 2013. So I actually joined a Salesforce.com, which is a big cloud computing technology company in Silicon Valley. They're actually the world's number one CRM tool today. So they've surpassed Oracle and some of the big legacy players in that business. Oh, wow. But I joined an implementation partner, and it wasn't a true startup. It was a 6-year-old company, but there was some personal connections to this business. And so my family and I, we moved from Kansas City, which is our home and where we had, worked our way up the corporate ladder to get back to KC and all that. So we left KC and we moved to Stuart, Florida, which is about 45 minutes north of West Palm Beach. Mm-hmm. And it was my shot, or so I thought, at a meaningful equity stake in a small business. And the good stories happen when a guy sells his company and the people in his management team all cash out their equity shares, and life's good, and it totally changes your game, right? You hit the grand slam, the walk-off grand slam. Right. And that's what we wanted to happen, clearly. But man, we hit like a C&I single right through the shortstop's outstretched glove, and it was good but not great. But it gave me exposure to a really small, nimble, entrepreneurial company that, again, wouldn't trade the lessons. I didn't come back with $1 million, but we came back with a ton of life lessons and a ton of business knowledge. So my long-winded way of telling you and your listeners that in a really dark, hard, chaotic, stressful year for us, which we label Florida now, we learned a ton, and I got really great insight, and I started writing there. And I knew, people would tell me through my sales career and through work settings and even kind of through just random friends, long emails or things like that. They're like, man, Justin, you're a great writer. Like you're great at articulating your message, and can you help? It came in random forms like, hey, could you proof this paper for me, or could you look over this email before I send it to my boss asking for a promotion, or whatever the case may be. And even it came from my wife at home saying, hey, Justin, you I don't know what it is, but you need to start writing. You need to start sharing some of this random stuff that's in your head and get it out on paper. And so I was hesitant, Joel, to be honest. I bought the domain. I watched a bunch of WordPress, how-tos on YouTube, and for a couple months, and this was early 2014. For a couple months, I'd post 2 or 3 times a week, and then like any kind of online addict junkie that we all are, I'm sure, I started looking at the Google Analytics, and it's like, man, like four people read my blog, or I haven't had a comment in 2 months or whatever, and just very, very, very light traffic. And I thought I was writing great stuff. I was writing about sales strategy, and I was writing about culture and business leadership and how to lead a team of employees and kind of all this business type stuff. And there's guys like John Acuff who say, hey, don't even look up until you're at the year point to see what's happening with your traffic. Like, just write for the art of and the discipline of writing. Right. And so all that to say, and to get back to your question, was the early stages were 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, me opening my laptop and writing. And it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, didn't bring any money initially, it didn't bring any huge traffic, but it got me into this mindset. And Jeff Goins now says it so beautifully. Yeah. He's like, you don't need permission to call yourself a writer. Just call yourself a writer. Just say that you're a writer. And that light, kind of flipped on for me to say, I'm a great writer. Of course I'm not perfect, and of course I'm not awesome yet, but I love writing, and I love putting my thoughts on, in this day and age, on a computer, on paper, to clarify where I want to go. So that's where it started, man. It started with a really terribly designed, self-hosted blog and a couple posts a week that I fumbled through, but it built this memory muscle, just like anything, right? Just like a marriage, just like parenting, just like working out or not working out, or eating or not eating well. The memory muscle of finding the time to write, and not even finding it, right? To make the time to sit my butt on a chair or a couch or a park bench on a lunch break and write. That was it. That's where it all started.
Awesome. And there's so much that you shared there, and I wanted to try to touch on as much of it as possible. So going back 12 years, you were doing the ticket sales, you were already married, you had your first child, or your first child was on the way, and now, were you doing this, this was 12 years ago, so was there any online component to this at all, or was this just kind of like, how were you making that work?
Yeah, so I'll date myself here a bit. So this is pre-Facebook. I graduated college in 2003, and I'm pretty certain, the fact checkers may catch me here, but I'm fairly certain Facebook kind of launched to the college market in 2004, 2005. Right. So our college class didn't know what Facebook was, but eBay had started. So to answer you, the what we were doing, and it was my roommate and I, and ultimately then Brooke helped and a couple other buddies, and we had this little business going where we would buy concert tickets as soon as they went on sale on Ticketmaster.com, and we'd go to the college computer lab to do it, and we'd put it on our personal credit cards, and it could be $50, it could have been $500 depending on the show. And then we had these really, again, terrible templates that we had on eBay. And at one point, I was a power seller on eBay. I don't think I'll ever put that on like my obituary or anything, but I was a power seller on eBay, schlepping like Tim McGraw tickets in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or whatever. Right. So we would buy first 5 rows of tickets, and then we'd go figure out what the market looked like through other eBay listings, and that was it. That was our total research. Like, hey, what are other guys asking for it? Let's charge $20 less, and we'll sell them quicker. So, so it did have an online component. Ticketmaster.com and eBay.com. That was it.
All right, and then you went through that process. You failed, and maybe we'll talk about this failure piece a little bit. But then you made a decision. I think you said you had to scramble and find a job. So because you had your family was just getting started, and why didn't you at that point in time say, let me go into another venture? Why did you decide, hey, let me go get a full-time job?
Yeah, it's a great question, and honestly, one that even recently in our marriage, we talked about, hey, what would it have looked like if I would have tried one more thing then instead of now working in the corporate space for 12 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So the I think, and I'm sure a lot of the dads listening can resonate with this. When it's you alone or you and your wife alone, you can take some pretty big lumps. All of a sudden, I see a baby in her belly at she's 7 months pregnant, and I'm going, I got to figure out a way to make sure this kid eats. I mean, as foundational, as fundamental as that, like I need to provide, and that provider mentality kicked in, and honestly overtook the vein of entrepreneurship. But that vein never totally went away, and it hasn't died. Clearly, that's why we're talking about this stuff. Is that it is meaningful and it's important. But there were times when I just had to say, and that was one in particular, was, hey, this isn't ultimately just about me. Of course, I need to be fulfilled and doing work that is meaningful and all that. But when I'm staring at my pregnant wife going, all right, it was a fun ride, but I made some stupid decisions. It's time to dig out and get a shovel and start digging.
Yeah. Awesome. So you had the one catalyst, right? I like to use this word catalyst because I feel that, I believe, and I even feel that it takes a pretty impactful or pretty, what's the word, something significant in your life for one to make a decision or to transition from one phase to the next, right? Or to go to that next level, if you will. In your case, the catalyst was your daughter was born and you wanted to be a provider, and the instinct kicked in to be a provider. So it made sense. So now you found this corporate job. 12 years later now, the next catalyst is, I want to be there for my children, is what I've heard you say.
Yeah.
And working this job where I'm in at 6, leaving at 9 p.m. and then back 8 a.m. the next morning, I'm providing, I'm putting food on the table, but I'm not being a dad. And now that kicks into the next phase of, I need to do something different, is what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So tell us, can you remember exactly when did that moment take place, and share with us, like, what was the discussion like when you had that feeling that this is not going to work, I need to be an engaged father?
Yeah, no, that's right, and you're right on. So this sounds crazy, and I guarantee you most of your listeners are going to get mad at me when I say this. I went to 3 straight Super Bowls. I worked for the Kansas City Chiefs. It was again great gig, and I love those people. Literally, like, I love the team. I got to know a couple of players. Mainly it was the front office. I love their leadership. They're unbelievable people. It's a great ownership family. But I was at Super Bowl in New Orleans. This was a couple years ago, and fortunately, my wife was able to come. And this sounds so petty and crazy, but we were getting in an elevator to go to a dinner with clients, and there was a glass-plated elevator door. And so as I'm standing there, I'm looking, and this is, again, we're talking about as from an opportunity perspective for a young guy like me, it was an unbelievable circle that I was running in. But the elevator, I'm staring at it, and my wife's there, and she's obviously a pretty woman, and it's great and all that. And I look at myself in the mirror, and I've got a suit on, and I was about 30 pounds heavier than the day I graduated college. And I was looking at it, and I was like, man, not that it's all about weight or anything like that, but I was looking in the mirror and going, and there's a visible reminder, or not even a reminder, there's a visible display of what you've been giving yourself to these last several years. And it's kind of an emotional deal to think, staring at somebody that I didn't really like. It tied into the fathering piece, and I'm going, man, this is the third straight Super Bowl I've been away from my kids. And again, most guys would kill for that opportunity, so I'm eternally grateful for the work I got to do there.
Right.
But I'm going, man, like, my son at the time was 2. Like, I want to watch a Super Bowl with him sometime. I want to sit on my couch in my living room with my cheap, food and drinks with my family and watch a Super Bowl. So that was really, and I haven't shared that story with anybody outside of my family, to say I looked at this guy in the proverbial mirror and I was like, man, I don't like him. Not that I couldn't have been different in that setting. I think I could have, but I started to put my identity in places that weren't ever going to fully satisfy me, and I'd become driven and ambitious and hungry for things that I really ultimately wanted something different. And so that began the quest to say, look, I've got a big load at home, right? We've got 5 kids. We've been on a single income. Brooke's been fortunate to stay at home all these years with the kiddos. I can't do something crazy and drastic like just shut it down and say, hey, cool, I'm going to start a business. Right. So my journey's been, jumping from lily pad to lily pad, trying to get to the island. But we're on one today, and it's been a fun journey to start to reclaim the things that we as a family believed were the most meaningful for us.
Yeah, that's awesome, and thank you for sharing that with us, with the Startup Dad community, and being vulnerable and giving us that, that piece of information that's so key in your decision, and how you arrived at that decision. And I think a lot of startup dads are going to connect with that, right? Because even myself, I've gained quite a bit of weight as well, and I'm on this journey to reclaim my, like I shared with you. Started, and I think a lot of the community knows, I work night shift. I've been on night shift for 14 years, and it's worked well with being able to come home, have breakfast with the kids, have breakfast with my wife, go to sleep, wake up, have dinner, and then come off to work. But health-wise, it's been a disaster. And now as the kids are getting older, I don't want to be on nights, and I want to reclaim, reclaim that piece of my life. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
So Justin, can you connect the dots for us of how you arrived at your business? So you talked about, a lot of people say, hey, you're a good writer, but how did you come up with the business? I know your business is basically your name, the domain you picked, so it's basically branding yourself, which is awesome. And then, but how did you arrive at the actual mission of the business? And one of the taglines I've seen on your website says, reclaiming meaning in the things that matter most.
Yeah, great question. So and I'm very, very transparent. I'm in the way early stages here, where there's a little bit of money coming in, but this isn't my full-time gig yet. I've got a great job. I'm in a consulting business here in Kansas City that has been a true blessing in the sense of being able to give me some of my time back, and I'm still hustling and kicking butt there, but also doing this other piece on the side, and really it's early mornings and late nights. And so the journey that got me to the clarity around what I want to go do and have the vision to be able to articulate that statement that you just said, reclaiming meaning in the things that matter most, came from that scene in the elevator initially, but that was the genesis. And then as my writing developed and the blog took on somewhat of a form where, I'll tell you the exact story that happened. So I read, just like I'm sure a lot of your listeners are doing, they're consuming blog after blog, and they're reading Pat Flynn and Goins and James Altucher and Michael Hyatt. All these guys are amazing, and they were absolutely, to use your word, catalysts in my development. They started to flip the lights on to say, Hey, there's guys doing it that are making a good living and doing meaningful work, and they're more flexible to be at home and all that. But it also seemed out of reach, right? Like, these guys are way down the line, and they've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. Like, there's no way I can get there. And I read in late 2013, I read James Altucher's book called Choose Yourself. And that's when as a result of that book, that's when I bought the domain and started to kind of toy around with the blog. And then I'll give one more shout out specifically to a guy in this space who's, again, down the journey a ways for me still. But Kamanzi Constable is a guy I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard, who was a bread delivery guy in Milwaukee. And then he kind of started his online journey a few years ago and wrote an ebook and then wrote a published book. And ultimately, he and his family moved to Maui. And he's doing awesome stuff, and he's very, very, very transparent and doing some cool things. And he did a guest post. I'll connect all the dots here real quick. He did a guest post at John Acuff's site, and I read Acuff's stuff. And Kamanzi, as part of that guest post, which is a smart strategy, said, "Hey, for anybody that will take me up on it, I'll give a 30-minute coaching session to for free." And so I'm like in the full mode of trying to figure all this out, and there's a lot of confusion and. Am I doing the right stuff? Am I not? So I jumped on the phone with Kamanzi, and he was the one, and this is only 4 or 5 months ago, he specifically said, "Man, your content's fine. It's good," even, he said. He's like, let's say it's great even. Let's say your stuff is great on your website. He's like, "Justin, the problem is nobody's reading it." He said, "Nobody is coming to your site yet." He's like, "Start writing, put the same energy into writing for other outlets that then drive, kind of the guest post type philosophy." And so in the last 4 or 5 months, and it seriously makes me kind of humbled to even say it, in the last 4 or 5 months, I've written for Yahoo Parenting, HuffPost Parents, GoodMenProject.com, RedBookMag.com. Yeah, your listeners will laugh at this one. I've even had a piece go on Cosmopolitan. I'm like, man, am I turning into a woman here? What's up? But there's been this really amazing thing that's happened where I started to put my same effort and energy from a writing perspective, but all these sites, all these big, well-branded, well-established sites, I've guest posted for Jackie Bledsoe, myfatherdaughter.com, they were kind to allow me to run a piece there. And this hustle that I had already been doing in the sense of the daily habit of writing, I focused the same energy on submitting those posts to other sites and following their editors on Twitter and engaging in a conversation and providing value and giving them email, just providing value. And from a true sales perspective, that's a great way to win a deal ultimately, is to be one that is friendly and kind and providing great stuff and not asking for a bunch of crap right out of the gate, right? They ask will come, but when you just are give, and I see the book behind you, Gary Vaynerchuk's book, when you're jabbing, when you're going jab, 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 and then you hit them with the right hook at some point, but not the first cold email. Right. And so those were some of the dots along the way that allowed me to really see some significant, beyond my aunt and my family reading my blog, now it's going, holy cow, there's a real conversation, and dads are emailing and frustrated wives are emailing. I'm going, hey, I didn't sign up to be a counselor here, but I'll help you out if I can. So I'd say, from a tactical and practical perspective, if you've got listeners here that are trying to, say, hey, what do you actually go do? Here's what you do if you're in the writing space, or if you're in any, podcasting space or whatever. Go find somebody that already has an awesome audience, like you do, Joel. And this is selfish for me at some point because I'm helping spread my message, but you're kind and generous to give me a glimpse into your audience. That's the way to go build a following and build an audience and have your message start to resonate with people, is when you go take that same message to a site that has way more traffic than you do at the moment.
Wow, that is so inspiring, your story. I mean, just in terms of the time frame that that we're talking about here, right? So, Startup Dads, just in case you got lost there, we're talking about 2013. We're now in December of 2014, and and in just the last 4 months, to be able to write for Huffington Post, Good Man Project, and some of the other well-known, I mean, Cosmopolitan. That's huge. I mean, regardless of whether it's a female magazine, that's
awesome. Right.
That is so amazing that you've been able to do so much in just a short period of time, and it just took that one conversation to kind of change your perspective and give you a different way of looking at things. So that's really inspiring. Yeah, awesome. And just to let you know, Justin, the dads that I bring onto the show mainly, I will have the Pat Flynn's on there. Hopefully, this is maybe a shout out to Pat.
Yeah, that's right. Come on, Pat.
Yeah, the Pat Flynn's and the Mike Stelsners and those guys on the show. But like you mentioned earlier, being able to connect, and that's really what the platform that I'm trying to create with Startup Dad is, a dad like yourself who is taking massive action, making those sacrifices, shutting off the TV, spending the time with your kids during the day, and then at night or early in the morning, taking action and making things work. So I really, and that's why I love this, the quote, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And,
absolutely.
And you are clearly well into your steps and into your journey. So thank you for sharing that with us. We're now entering the segment, and I know the time is, we want to be cognizant of your time. So we start to pick up the pace here. This is the last two segments of the show. This segment is called Real Dads, Real Talk. And this is where we go deep, and I ask a series of tough questions that we just can't skip over. We also, like I mentioned, start to pick up the pace. And my questions here are more, they're already structured. So I'm just going to be firing off the questions, and then you answer them to the best of your ability.
Great. Let's do it.
Right. Cool. All right. So we talked about failure earlier. Now we want to talk about doubt and fear. I want to start with doubt and fear, specifically from the perspective of a father and a provider. What has been one doubt or fear that you struggle with, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, great question. So initially, early on, was, do people even care what I say? Like, I'm a great guy, whatever, but ultimately, we're just guys, right? We're just trying to figure it out. So my doubt early on was, man, do people care? And the answer is, yeah, absolutely. Because guess what? The world outside of this podcast community, the blog community, and everything else, your neighbor down the street, your colleague that sits in the cube next to you or whatever, they're not, by and large, taking the initiative to go say something that's on their mind. They're content with checking in, punching the clock, checking it in at home, getting through the day, right? Like this really, I tweeted the other day, it's sad how many people are living for Friday and they hate Monday. They're just kind of existing. And so for me, yeah, absolutely, there's been a ton of doubts and a ton of fears, and there still are. There's still this core gnawing at my soul that says, man, can you really go build a business around this? But then that's when you look at guys like Grant Baldwin, who are a couple, 10 steps ahead, not 100 steps ahead like Pat Flynn. And you say, yeah, there's awesome dudes. There's guys like Joel. There's guys like Grant. There's guys like, fill in the blank that we all listen to that are doing it, and they're being transparent about it. And that's what I love. And so if you put it in a true commerce, in a business mindset, the world has flipped. And we now have access directly through our earbuds to the world. The world isn't going to listen to us yet, but there's going to be a growing amount of people that you get a direct invitation into their email inbox through your blog, or to their earbuds in their car during the commute that they hate, and they're listening to you, Joel, and they're going, man, if he can do it, if he can start to break free from the 14 years working nights at Intel, I can do it. That's where, of course, there's a ton of fear and doubt, but, as John Acuff said, punch it in the face and keep going.
Awesome. What's the hardest personal sacrifice you've had to make?
Without question, it's been sleep, and that's not sustainable by any stretch. But the sacrifices I've made have been, all right, it's going to suck, but you promised Good Men Project you'd have an article to them by Friday. It's Wednesday night. You got to get up at 5:30 tomorrow, right? you know. So for sure, it's been sleep for me, and that's a lame. I mean, people are dealing with way harder stuff than losing an hour of sleep, right? So that that's not a sacrifice, really. It's a lifestyle shift, and it's a short-term decision to say, hey, this is meaningful. Go do it. Get up, get your butt out of bed, and go do it. Yeah. And that can be true for health or wellness or working hard, whatever. I mean, that's true for anything. And we have more time than we think we do. We just choose to fill it up with Twitter or Facebook or TV. So
yeah. I had the same gentleman I mentioned earlier, Eugene, on the show, and he said he was complaining about not being able to have time to start his business, and his friend turned to him and said, hey, you have the same amount of time as Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And that statement to him was that was the catalyst.
That's awesome.
Stop making excuses and go do it. So
Yep.
Tell us about the intersection between fatherhood and entrepreneurship. We've been talking about fatherhood and entrepreneurship, but where do you see the intersection between those two things?
Yeah, it's great, and your community is awesome to explore that question. So I'll give you, I promise it'll be a short story. So if you go to spotsthetortoise.com, one selfish plug. So Spots, like you name a dog, but spotsthetortoise.com. It's a story that my 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old, wrote, and we funded. It's a really amazing story, and I blogged about it, so I'll give you those links. But she wrote a story about a tortoise that she found in Florida when we lived there. It was an endangered species, we found out, so she ultimately had to give it back. But then she said, hey, I want to write a book about Spots so that other kids can hear his story. Mm-hmm. And we, as parents, Brooke and I, said, we kind of did the, yeah, cool, like this will probably, go past your memory here in a couple days. But she was relentless, and she didn't quit. And so we finally said, cool, here's what it's going to look like. If you really want to print 750 books, like she said, that was her number, and she wanted them to be really thick board books, like the Brown Bear books. Yeah. And so we did all the research and said, hey, if we hire a professional illustrator and we do this, we buy these books, and here's the timeline, here's what it's going to cost. It was a little over $4,000 all in. Mm-hmm. And so we started a Kickstarter campaign on Brooke's and really raised it through Brooke's Facebook friends. My dog's barking here. I'm sorry. No. We launched the Kickstarter campaign, and within 30 days we had over $5,200 about. And I say all that to answer your question on fatherhood and entrepreneurship. She, as a 10-year-old, is teaching me about that intersection, going, hey, go do something, go take action, go take initiative. Yeah. It's going to not be the perfect book right out of the gate. It's not going to be the most well-crafted thing in the entire world, but just go do stuff. Like, just you're exactly right. Take one step and then take another one, and then you're going to start to hit your pace and hit stride, and things will start to clear up and make more sense, right? So as we sit here today, she's sold almost 300 of those 750 books. And Joel, we've mailed books we're in Missouri, right? So the middle of the country. There's a map behind us here. We've mailed books to Florida, California, Washington, Oregon, even as far as Australia this last week. And she's donating out of that it's a $10 book, so she's donating $2 to charity, and then the rest of it's going to her college fund. And so we're going, man, let's go be creative on how we teach our kids how to run their own businesses and plant that seed in them at an early age. And again, she's teaching us. She was the one that was driving that whole thing. So I think that intersection of fatherhood and entrepreneurship is a real one. It's one where we have to lean into it and say, some guys know all the answers. I clearly don't. So you lean into it and you go, look, be willing to say you don't know stuff. Be willing to ask questions. Be willing to write a blog post that sucks, or do a podcast that sucks for a little bit, or do stuff that isn't Pat Flynn material yet. But all those guys started somewhere, right? And that's the beauty of it, is just start to take initiative that benefits other people, and it's going to resonate. It just will.
Yeah. Justin, by far, that is the best answer to that story I've heard so far, man. That is an amazing story, and for so many reasons. And just the fact that you guys raised $5,200 off of a Kickstarter campaign, you took up on her word. I mean, she pushed you guys to, just amazing story. So thank you for
I appreciate that.
To share that one with us.
Absolutely.
So we're now entering our final segment, which I call the handyman segment. And this is where we quickly reach into your toolbox, and I ask you for some tools to provide to the Startup Dad community. I completely, that story just blew me away down.
No.
So this is where we reach into your toolbox, and you provide the Startup Dad community with some really useful tools. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. What is your number one time management hack or tool?
So the thing that I've loved the most, there's a site called Topsy, TOPSY.com, and it's time management in the sense that if you put a URL, and for me in the writing space, if my post gets shared on some other site or through Twitter and it's not directly mentioned me, right? So I don't necessarily see it in my feeds or my mention. If I put the URL of the site in there or of the story, it will pull up everybody who's tweeted that article. So I go to Topsy.com, and then you can reply directly from that feed and say, hey, thanks, Joel, for sharing my story. Really appreciate it. And as an example, Joel's going, I didn't even know that dude wrote that story. And it creates a conversation. And again, it's an engagement point. And a lot of those folks follow you back on Twitter or engage in the conversation or share your link again or what have you. So that's a really cool, quick, easy way to see who's sharing your content, and helps you with time. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. What's one personal habit you believe attributes to your success as a father, husband, and entrepreneur?
Oh man. So one thing that's great. I do think that this concept of a fully integrated man is critical. So it's not sustainable to be really awesome at work and be a terrible husband, or be an unbelievable husband and eat your face off and gain 70 pounds a year, right? So this concept of it's all integrated, and the things that you are passionate about lead and give life to other things. So when I'm consistently in a funk, there's a lot of connecting dots. I'm not reading, I'm not getting up early to write, I'm not working out at all, I'm eating like crap, I'm drinking, whatever. Like there's some really consistent things that happen when I'm in a funk. But when I'm operating, when I'm kind of at peak performance, the opposite's true. I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, but I'm going to bed early, and I'm not watching the 7th episode of SportsCenter. I'm going to bed, and I'm getting up, and I'm reading, and then working out, and then writing a bit, all before work, and before the kids get up. And then that's, man, brother, it's dark when that happens. So the concept of, man, when I'm clicking, most of the time there's a lot of synergy, and it leads to all this other stuff. And when I'm not clicking and I'm in a funk, if I'm being a jerk to my wife or I'm being short with my kids, it's because these other things are out of sync and out of whack as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What's one way you manage your health?
So I've kind of built and modified my own plan for wellness, I call it, but eating. Pretty straightforward. So Tim Ferriss has a slow carb diet. It's a similar deal as that, but not quite as scientific and as intense, because we just don't have quite the margin. So simply, it's what I call 6 on, 1 off. So I do 6 days on this plan, and then I do 1 day off. And for us, it's no wheat, no dairy, no sugar, no alcohol, 6 days a week. So those 4 kind of fundamentals. And then one day, which is Saturday for us, it's been, candidly, dude, it's been tough on the holidays. But the one day we have as our cheat day, is what Tim Ferriss calls it. We call it Sweet Saturday in our family. So our kids have adopted this as well, for the most part. Again, we all screw up and and do stuff on occasion, but the lifestyle we've built is, hey, Sunday through Friday, we're gonna build in some diligence and some rigor around what we put in our bodies, because we think that's important. And so we're gonna eat salads, and we're gonna eat chicken, and we're gonna eat healthy stuff. We're not gonna shove Pop-Tarts and Cinnamon Toast Crunch down our holes before breakfast every day, or before school every day. And then on the free day, everything goes out the window and you do whatever you want. That's when we eat pizza. That's when we go get ice cream as a family. That's when I'll have a couple beers or whatever. So it's pretty simple. 6 on, 1 off, and the 6 on are no wheat, no dairy, no sugar, no alcohol.
Nice. You wouldn't happen to have a post on that, would you?
I do. I can send that to you. Yeah, I do have one on my blog about that.
Absolutely. So what's one book every startup dad should absolutely read?
I mentioned Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. I think that's a game changer, and I'm still, maybe it's my pressure on being on your show, my friend, but I can't remember her name. It's Dr. Meg. I'll find it. We'll make sure that the link is in the show notes. So that's a absolute no-brainer. And then just selfishly on the entrepreneur piece, I think every guy should read Choose Yourself by James Altucher. And man, he's an unbelievable writer. He's kind of random, and he's got some interesting things that he writes about and talks about. But in the true sense of he's instilled this vision in me to choose yourself. Like, go bet on yourself, and not in a confident, arrogant, egotistical way, but in a way that says, hey, it's up to me, man. Like, let's go do really cool stuff and create a life that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually in a private group with him, but I haven't had a chance to connect with him yet.
Cool.
But I definitely have to do that. So Justin, this has been an amazing interview. I thank you for your time again. Yeah, I know this is late at night. My final question is a little bit longer, but it usually produces really powerful answers. And here it is. On the other side of the broadcast is a startup dad who at this point is fired up and ready to go. But as soon as the broadcast is over, he's going to put down his mobile device, maybe shut down the laptop, and life is going to happen. And by next week, he'll find himself back to the day-to-day minutia of things. What would you say to that dad to inspire him beyond this broadcast?
Man, what an awesome question. And look, I'll give you how that's happened in my life. The highs feel super high, and the flames are flickering and burning out of control, and then the blanket gets put over it. But I'll tell you, man, if the spark doesn't go fully out, you've got a shot. And so you probably will. There's going to be guys that listen to it, and whether it's my interview or your next guest or whoever, and they're going to be fired up. Just stay in that rhythm of keeping the light flickering just a bit, even if it's just a tiny bit. Because I think we're all, if we're honest, man, we look around and we see neighbors or friends or coworkers or dads even, or brothers even, or whoever, guys that are super close to us, and you can see it in their face that they're dried up, they've shut it down, they've kind of thrown in the towel, and they're just like on cruise control until retirement. And man, what a terrible way to live, right? Like, just keep that, even if it's a tiny amount of a flame going. Just don't let that thing get squashed. And give yourself the grace and the permission to say, hey, there will be times when you're going to feel like you're in the day-to-day and the mundane and the grind and all that other stuff. But I've found, at least in our life, raising 5 kids, life happens in the day-to-day and the mundane. Very, very rarely and infrequently are we standing at the mountaintop on vacation. That happens a little bit for sure, and those days are great. But man, like, real life, we have a saying in our home that is the little things are where the big meeting happens. And Brooke, my wife, constantly always says, like, hey, look, these are the best days. Let's quit looking forward to retirement or when we make our first million or when we do this or whatever else. Like, these are the best days. So I don't know if that helps, but I would tell that guy, keep that little bit of a flicker going, because something will happen, man, where that will ignite and be a consistent flame moving forward. But if it's sporadic and up and down and volatile today, that's okay. But just plug the earbuds back in on your commute home and listen to Joel's next show. Like, just keep the inspiration coming, because you're hearing a million things the other direction that are trying to suck the life out of you. So keep the little snippets of good, positive, inspiring stuff coming, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, awesome. Justin, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your Startup Dad journey and for a truly inspiring episode. Please take a final moment and tell us where we could find you. We talked about your website a little bit, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Yeah,
so Justin Ricklefs. So if you Google that, you'll get to my blog. And my last name is Ricklef, like Frank, S like Sam, as you see it on the screen there. So Google that, and then one selfish plug here. In mid-January, I'll have, and it's a short book, but it is a book. I'm going to call it a book. It'll be a 60 to 70-page book that I'll have launched on Amazon that will be an extension of the post that truly went viral for us around, it was called 15 Things All Dads of Daughters Should Know. So it'll be a 15-chapter, and you can see the amazing logic I had on that. A 15-chapter short book that we'll have launched on Amazon by the end of January. So hopefully, just Google my name, and you'll find Twitter, my blog, and maybe LinkedIn will be the first 2 or 3 things that pop up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Justin, like I said before we started broadcasting, I think this episode is going to launch around that same exact time. So I'll definitely have that in the show notes, and I'll definitely share that with the Startup Dad community. So
thanks, my friend. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks again, Justin.
Likewise. Have a great night. Thanks for your time.
All right.
Hey Startup Dads, take the next step right now and download your free guide called 9 Apps Every Startup Dad Should Have in His Toolbox. It's only available at StartupDadHQ.com/free gift. Again, that's StartupDadHQ.com/free gift. So go download it now, and we'll see you next time on Startup Dad HQ. When you combine the dream come true.
Nope.